Welcome to the 2025 K-State Garden Hour webinar series. We're so glad you're here. This webinar series started in 2020 and has been a collaboration of the entire K-State Horticulture Extension team. Since the start of the program, we've reached over 107,000 gardeners, just like you. We're pleased to continue offering the K-State Garden Hour series for free. If you've enjoyed these educational webinars, please consider making a tax-deductible donation to support this program. The link to donate can be found in the chat or on our K-State Garden Hour website. This webinar is hosted by Kansas State Extension. My name is Lane Weens, and I'm the Horticulture Extension Agent for Shawnee County. Everyone involved in the development of this series is an extension professional for K-State. Most of us have a background in horticulture education or a related discipline. But most of all, we each have a love for educating and sharing important garden topics. Before we get started, we do have a couple of housekeeping notes to cover. Please use the Q&A feature for questions related to this presentation. This is where we'll look for questions at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. You should see a button along the bottom of your tab that says Q&A. Just click on that and you'll be able to enter your question. Today's webinar will be recorded and we'll post it to our K-State Garden Hour website. We typically upload additional resources related to each topic as well. If we share links through the chat, we'll also link them on the website. Our website is also where you can have access to previous topics and upcoming topics in the series. Our moderators today are Pam Paulson and Anthony Reardon. They will be sharing information through the chat during the presentation. They will also help facilitate the Q&A portion of the webinar. Today's topic is gifts for gardeners. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker today, Calla Edwards. Please give us a few moments while we transition and share the presentation slides.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So I saw some really great ideas come through the chat. And some of these will some of the ones that showed up in the chat will also show up in our presentation. So this particular presentation actually has been the product of several years. Every December, I write an article called Gifts for Gardeners in my horticultural newsletter that goes out across the county. And originally, the ideas for Gifts for Gardeners were slightly self-serving. My parents have been avid gardeners for decades, and so doing research looking for new products was kind of my way to find new gifts for those hard to find gift people in our lives, because we all know somebody that has everything, or this year my parents are in the process of moving, so giving things might not be the best option. After the first couple years, though, I started surveying the people who received my newsletter and then also surveying my master gardeners, because we all know that gardeners know the best products. They have the best tools that they love. They have products that they really enjoy. They have books that they enjoy reading. And so a lot of this presentation today is based off of the surveys that I have sent out to the gardeners in my community and some of them across the state. So let's take a look at some of these gifts for gardeners and figure out what options might work for the gardener in your life. Now, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about before we get started talking about actual products, and that's thinking about picking the perfect gift. Some of my grandma's and my parents' favorite gifts haven't been ones that actually cost any money. They've been personalized items, they've been coupons, they've been time spent doing things that they love. So as we're thinking about gifts, think about not just purchasing something, but think about giving the gift of time as well and listening to the gardener in your life and what they might need or what they might want. Because personal and inexpensive sometimes are our best options. Now, as we get started, I do have to make a disclaimer that the products listed or featured in this webinar were recommended based on a survey of Extension Master Gardener volunteers and local gardeners. Mention of any specific commercial product, brand, manufacturer, or company is for informational purposes only and does not imply an endorsement or or recommendation by Kansas State University or K-State Extension. I really recommend, if you see a product that you like in this webinar, that you do some additional research. Most of the products that are part of this webinar are ones that you could purchase from a variety of sources. I found many of them locally. You can find them from a variety of stores online, whether it's Amazon or other locations. So I really recommend that you take this presentation as a guide to give you ideas, and then do some additional research to find the product that will fit your gardener the best. Now, our first group of products are garden tools. So these are products that go outdoors. They're for the gardener that has a little bit of everything. But we have a mix of different tool options and different things. Something I do recommend that you consider that's not specifically in this presentation, especially for gardeners that are maybe getting older or are starting to have some mobility issues, but look at products that help them adapt the tools they currently have so that they can continue to use them as they age or as things get harder. There are a lot of different handles or grips that you can purchase for tools that they already have that may make the product that they love work better for them in the future. So the first product I want to mention, and this is one that has been hands down the most recommended product on all of the surveys that I have sent out, but this is the Hori knife. This versatile knife is a unique mixture of trowel, saw, and knife. So it offers a serrated blade on one side that's great for dividing perennials or cutting through roots in a garden. Some of them also have measurements on the blade that the gardeners really love to help them plant bulbs or to plant different seeds. But consider adding a Hori knife or a garden knife of some type to your gardener's toolbox. I know, again, this has been the most recommended product for the last 2 years, by far, with multiple gardeners recommending it. So if you've never heard of it, maybe take a look. Now, this particular product is available in a lot of different locations. If there's a product that is specifically available in one location, there will be a sheet posted tomorrow with a list of those links, and some of them may be shared through the chat as we go along. So up next, every gardener's nemesis seems to be weeds. And we had a variety of different tool options to help control weeds in the garden that were recommended. The first one to our top left, the one with the spiky wheels, is called a garden weasel. It's a garden weasel cultivator, and it works great to both break up the crust of the soil after a heavy rain. It can also work up those small little weed seedlings as they first come up. But the gardener that recommended it also loved to use it in their flower beds in the spring to help fluff up the mulch that may have gotten compacted due to snow or weather conditions throughout the winter. That again is available a lot of locations. The one directly below it, this claw one, is also a garden weasel, but it's the claw version. And it is great for weeding, but also breaking up the soil and loosening up some of those hard spots. You can step on it, and then as you pull it up, it breaks apart the top of the soil. Moving to our top right-hand corner is Grandpa's Weeder. This one is available on both grandpasweeder.com, but also other locations. But it works really well for dandelions or larger stemmed products, and also, but a variety of weeds. You push it down around the weed, step on the handle as you pull it out, and it pulls that particular weed out of the ground. Those 3 products are all long-handled, so they're great for people to do some weeding without having to kneel down, bend over, or get on the ground. Now, this bottom one is one that I enjoy and one that was also recommended. And it's what they've called a snake tongue weeder because the tip of it looks like a snake's tongue. But this works really well for getting weeds like dandelions and things out of your flower beds. The tip goes around the weeds, and then because of the shape, you can use the blade as leverage to help you pop those weeds out. I've also used it to get rocks and to get roots and things out of my flower beds as well. That particular one is a Corona brand, but there are several different options on the market as well. This company is one of a couple companies that we specifically recommend. This is the Rogue Hoe Company. They were originally based out of Kansas. Now they are based out of Missouri. But this is they make a wide variety of different tools, everything from gardening to firefighting to trailblazing. And all of their products are made out of recycled agricultural cultivator blades or different agricultural products. So we know that the steel or the metal that they're made out of is really strong and sturdy. Depending on the product, they have some like this one right here that are hand tools, but they have different shapes and sizes of hose, different types of cultivator type products. And the yellow does say caution sharp, so the hose do come pre-sharpened, and because of the metal, they do stay fairly sharp. Now, if you are specifically wanting something for Christmas, their website does currently say that they are behind due to a staff injury. So if you're wanting something specifically for Christmas, I would definitely take a look soon. This is a company that we used to do a large order for community gardens. Chuck Marr with K-State used to do a large order from this particular company. So check out the Rogue Hoe Company for the gardening needs. I termed this group the Garden Helpers. So these are all products that are designed to help your make disposing of waste, cleaning up leaves, moving things in the garden easier. A gardening cart has been probably the second most recommended item on my surveys for the last few years. Some type of heavy-duty gardening cart. This Gorilla cart was one that was recommended, and what the gardener really loved about it is it has an assisted dump feature, so you can pull the handle and dump things out the back end without having to dump the actual cart and wagon or dump the entire product over. But again, any type of large garden wagon or heavy duty wagon can work really well for a gardener and to help them move plants, move mulch, move the grandkids seems to be what the one at my parents' does quite often. In the middle are leaf bags. So various shapes and sizes. The gardener that recommended these liked this particular one because it has a hoop at the top. So when you lay them over on their sides to scrape leaves or things in them, the bag doesn't collapse. They also liked that this one had handles on the side as well to help them dump those leaves or clippings or plant material into their compost pile. Sometimes if they don't, they found it was a little difficult. And the third one on this particular page are called tub trugs. And what the gardeners liked about them is they come in various sizes. This is the medium size that is pictured. But the gardener liked the bright colors because they're easy to find in the garden and they add a little bit of fun. These products are also made of food grade polyethylene. They call it virgin, so it's never been used before, which makes them great for projects with kids, picking food items, different types of things that you might want to do in the garden. So think about something like this maybe for your gardener. Garden seating can be a great option. One of the gardeners recommended they really love their rolling garden chair. They use it out in their garden. lets them sit down and do weeding or pick different products, and they can roll along instead of having to get up and move or stand. So some kind of rolling cart that you can use in the garden might be a really good option. This is one brand, but there are a variety of different ones available on the market. Same with the garden stool in the middle. These stools have been recommended on multiple gardening surveys for a place simply to sit. And then gardeners also really liked that this particular product had the tool bag underneath of it. So they could put their tools, and when they're walking to the garden, they would have a free hand either for a watering can or a garden hose or different tools, so they're not having to carry multiple things in their hands at one time. There's various shapes and sizes and different heights of this particular product, but this has been one that's been highly recommended by multiple gardeners, as has our last garden seating option. This one is both a kneeler and also a seat. So the gardener that recommended it really likes the kneeler aspect of it because she can use the sides to help give her leverage to get up off the ground. So she can be down, and then it's easier for her to get up. It also comes with this little bag for her tools. And then if she wants to, she can stand up, take the bag off, flip it over, and it becomes a seat for her to sit on in the garden. So there's a variety of different types of kneelers. They can be as not fancy, but they can be like this one. I also like a pair of, I actually purchased them from an Ace Hardware, but a set of knee pads that work really well for working in the garden. I like them because they're strapped around my knees, and so I can just get up and move whenever I need to and not have to move one of those foam kneelers with me as I go. I saw in the chat as we were getting started that gardening gloves were on several people's wish lists for every year. And it seems like we go through quite a few pairs of gardening gloves every summer, depending on what you're doing. So there were a couple recommendations, and gardening gloves have been very popular. The purple ones on the left, the gardeners really liked because these are machine washable. And if you're like me, you go out in the garden, your gloves get kind of muddy and wet, and you just lay them out to dry. But then when you go to put your gloves back on, they're kind of crinkly and crusty because you've got them wet and muddy. So what the gardener really liked about these is they can take them inside, they can throw them in their washing machine and dryer. They're clean, they're ready to go for future use. The ones in the middle are actually insulated gardening gloves. So these black ones were found, they were a recommendation from last year, and they're great for people working outside in the wintertime to keep their fingers warmer. But they're also great for people who have arthritis in their fingers. They help keep some of the heat around those joints so that you don't have as much arthritis pain maybe when you're working in slightly cooler conditions. The leather gloves on the ends were recommended by a gardener that likes, they don't like the gloves that end right at their wrist. They want one that goes just a little bit further. So these leather gloves extend about halfway up your arm to close to your elbow, depending on how long your arms are. And because they're leather, they work very well to protect your hands and your arms from different plants and pokey thorns as well. Gardening gloves continued because you can never have too many gardening gloves, I don't think. These are some additional recommendations. These green ones are really long, so they extend all the way up to your shoulder almost. And the gardener liked those because they have a lot of rose bushes and a lot of plants with thorns that are scratchy. And so they liked those gloves because then they're protected all the way up to their shoulders, under their sleeves, and they don't have to worry about being scratched or marked up by the plants that they are growing. For the techie gardener, the gloves in the middle have 3 fingers that are touchscreen. So if you have a gardener that is kind of on the techie side, those may work great for them, because we all seem to go out in the garden, and that's when somebody wants to send us a text message or give us a call, and you got to pull the gloves off and answer the phone, or just ignore it and answer it later. And this last one is actually one of my recommendations. I like the gardening sleeves, and I usually use these. We do a fair amount of work in a pasture, clearing cedar trees and cutting down locust and hedge trees. And so I really like these to protect my arms from the pokes and the scratches that come from working in that type of environment. Now, those particular products, those are available from a wide variety of sources. Some of those have been linked in the chat. The sleeves you can find many places locally or online as well. So as I said earlier, some of the best gardening gifts don't have to be ones that are expensive to purchase or that you have to spend a lot of money on. If you are a little crafty, making some homemade garden markers is a great gift for any gardener, because they eventually all wear out, and we need to replace them at some point in time. So these garden markers on the left are actually made out of the paint stir sticks that you get when you purchase paint, or you can purchase them. If you have little kids, grandkids, making some homemade plant markers might be a great gift for a gardener. And it means more because it's personal. It's from the people that you love that are around you on a regular basis. The other markers are great options as well. The ones in the middle add some whimsy to a garden, identifying where some different plants are. And then the ones on the right are great for an herb garden or for a flower garden as well. Now, there's a variety of different stores and companies that you can purchase garden markers from. So I don't necessarily have those links to give you, but I recommend that you do some searching and do some reading, and you can find some really cool, unique ones, even some handcrafted ones online that you can purchase. Every gardener needs some watering tools, whether you garden outdoors or indoors. There's always a need to water the plants that we have. Now, for me, I love a good gardening hose. That was actually on my garden list, on my wish list for last year, was a new garden hose. And my husband looked at me and said that his coworkers would think he was crazy if he gave me gardening stuff for Christmas. And I said, nope, that's what I want. So a good garden hose is worth its weight in gold, in my opinion. I really like the Flexogen, and there's Flexogen is the technology. It's not the name necessarily of the garden hose, but I like that particular type of product because there's nothing more frustrating than pulling a garden hose out and it kinks halfway through, and you've got to find the kink to get the water going. So look for garden hoses that are kink resistant, because those seem to work better for me. Now, in a garden, especially for older gardeners, some of them really love, and some of my master gardeners really like the expandable garden hoses, because then they don't have to drag them around the garden with them. They don't have to have a hose hanger or a large space to keep them. So maybe a expandable garden hose is what would work best for the gardener in your life. Now, if you're looking for some stocking stuffers, hose end sprayers, so like this particular one in the top right-hand corner, or the ones that are adjustable so you can have different spray patterns, would make a great stocking stuffer gift as well. It seems like you can never have too many of them. I don't know about you, but somehow I manage to misplace them a couple times a year and have to find them a week or two later when I'm cleaning out a flower bed or doing something in the yard. So a hose end sprayer or one of these hose end, they're splitters, but you can also shut the water on and off. For me as a gardener, it seems like I can never have too many of those around my garden. And then finally, sprinkler systems, DIY sprinkler kits were one of the recommended products. There's a lot of them on the market. This particular one is for a landscape kit. I've also seen quite a few that are designed for pots on a patio or for hanging baskets. So think about what type of plants the gardener in your life might have, and maybe a sprinkler kit might work great for the gardener in your life. Oyas have been a favorite of my master gardeners. Oyas originated from the desert Southwest, but they also have come from other cultures around the world. They are a unglazed clay material. They come in a variety of shapes and sizes, but all of them you either bury in the ground or in a pot, fill them with water, and they slowly ooze water out the pores of the clay to water the plants around them. So some of them can be for house plants or smaller pots. The ones in the middle, the smallest one is actually a 1 gallon, so that one holds 1 gallon of water. And they go up from there. I know some of my master gardeners have used 3 to 5 gallon ones, and with the bigger ones, they bury them in their raised beds and plant around them, and that's how they water their raised beds every year. But they said when they pull them out in the wintertime so that they don't break, they find the roots have completely circled around the oyas and to get the water from them as they come out. Now, this is another product that can be homemade out of unglazed clay pots. So the ones on the right, you would fill one of the holes with silicone or some type of product to keep the water from coming out of the hole. You then silicone the 2 clay pots together and leave that top hole, one of the holes, empty so you can fill it with water. And then a clay saucer to cover that hole so you don't get a lot of evaporation or insects and things dropping into the holes after you bury it. But this would be a simple DIY homemade project that you can give as a gardener, or you can use yourself in your own garden. Battery-operated tools have become increasingly popular over the years, and there are a bunch of different brands that are on the market. There's several listed here, but there's quite a few other ones that are available. I have given battery-operated tools to several different people, and they absolutely love them. They come in a range of prices. One of the tips that I always give people if they're thinking about giving a larger battery operated item as a gift, so like the string trimmer, the leaf blower, head shears, the chainsaw, go to a store if you can and pick up those products. Handle them, see how they work, because there can be a big difference in weight from one product to another. My grandparents were gifted a battery string trimmer for Christmas one year as they were getting older. And they always complained they never wanted to use it. They didn't like it. And they could never tell us exactly why until my dad went to use it one day to do some trimming around the house for them and picked it up and realized how heavy it was. So try them out, feel them, because there can be a big difference in weight. So these were a couple types of battery operated tools that have been recommended. The first one is not actually a tool, it's an attachment that goes on a drill, but this is a bulb planter bit. It's an auger type bit that the gardener recommended. They really liked it to plant bulbs, but the bit was also big enough that they could use it to plant 4-pack annuals or packs of vegetables as well. So think about something like this with a really long handle. They do make some that have longer handles than this as well, but that can be great for a gardener who likes to plant a large garden or who likes to grow a lot of annuals and plant a lot of annuals or bulbs. The middle one is very similar to a pair of battery operated pruners I gave my dad actually for his birthday a few years ago. They were recommended by one of our master gardeners during a fruit tree pruning session. And they are great for the gardener who maybe has some grip or hand strength issues. In order so that they can continue pruning and doing different projects. Now, the one thing I will say about these and any of our tools, you do have to watch where your fingers are, because once you pull the trigger on this particular set of pruners, it will cut whatever is in the way. So do be aware of that. And then the little hand-operated chainsaw, I actually is similar to one that I got for my husband a couple years ago to use when we're trimming trees or to use on the farm as well. There are a bunch of different brands for the chainsaw and the pruners. I recommend that you do some reading, look into the brands, look at reviews, because they come in a range of prices as well. So do your research before purchasing a specific one. I can't recommend a specific brand because I've known master gardeners. I know several people that use several different brands of the battery operated pruner, and all of them have liked them really well, and the same thing with the chainsaw. For the gardener who has all the tools that they need, rain gauges or electronic weather stations may be a great gift idea. The one in the middle is a pretty simple, basic one. So there's some that are just the rain gauge. This one also keeps track of it and then gives you the inside and outside temperatures. They can also be have a lot of bells and whistles, such as the ones on the left and the right that have wind speed, humidity, what the maximum wind gusts and maximum and minimum wind gusts have been. I've also seen some that have soil temperature probes that you can use, that the gardener would use out in their vegetable gardens, so they knew what the soil temperature was, so they could plan on when they wanted to plant. But electronic weather stations come in a variety of different price ranges. So this is, again, similar to the battery operated tools. Do some research and find one that has the features that your gardener or you would really enjoy. And the last part of our tools section are garden support items. So the gardener recommended, these have all been recommended by the gardeners. So the first one, these clips were recommended by a gardener who hates their vegetables and things laying on the ground. So with the clips, they can clip them up to the tomato cages or to their supports and get those particular things off the ground to reduce spoilage and then also reduce the amount of disease issues they have. These also work great for those perennials that like to lodge or fall over. The same with the Velcro ties down below. The Velcro ties were recommended in last year's survey, actually, and they can be cut to whatever length you want, so they can be used to hold large or small things as well. And I don't know many gardeners who have not grumbled about tomato cages at some point in time in their gardening career. And so the collapsible gardening cages were recommended on both sets of surveys, both last year's and this year's. Collapsible tomato cages come in different shapes, sizes, and colors. This particular one is square. The gardener liked it because it had plastic around it, but the circular ones work really well. There's some that are triangular, but again, similar to different products, research the ones that you're looking at and make sure that they're going to be heavy duty enough to support the plants that you are growing or the plants that you're going to be using them for. That concludes our outdoor tools. Now, there were so many other recommendations that came in. I could have made an additional 2-hour long presentation on outdoor tools and additional recommendations. But those were some of the most recommended products as we went along. So moving into the indoor tools, because we all know that there are gardeners that just garden indoors. They have house plants. They don't have outdoor plants. Repotting mats. So these are reusable and waterproof. I've actually had some of these, and they've also were recommended on the surveys, but these reusable potting mats are great for gardeners if you're repotting things inside. You can use them outdoors as well. They can be unsnapped on the corners and folded flat, but if you're a messy gardener like me or a messy repotter, having those sides folded up is great to keep the dirt from escaping into whatever room I happen to be repotting my plants in. In the wintertime, it usually ends up being my living room. But we also use this in October. I use these to carve jack-o'-lanterns because it keeps everything kind of contained and they're easy to clean off and wipe off. But reusable potting mats have a lot of different uses and they're very handy for the gardeners. Now, I purchased mine on Amazon, but there's a lot of different options and locations that you can purchase them, and they range in size as well from small through large. We talked about some outdoor watering tools. I'd be remiss if I didn't hit on some of the indoor options as well. So these watering tools are great for plants that don't like to be dry or for plants when you're going to be gone on vacation. So the glass globes on the colored glass globes are kind of an old industry standard. They're typically hand blown. And I love them because they're both pretty, but also practical. So I use several of these in my house plants when I'm going to be gone, or if I have a plant that's just a little picky on how much water it gets, because they do work really well. The middle one is the clay version. It's an Oya, but it's shaped similar to the glass globe. So it's got a clay spout that goes down in, and then the top has a reservoir. So again, that's great for those plants that are a little picky on watering, or ones that dry out faster than the others, so you want to keep them with a little more water. And then the last set is perfect for gardeners who are going on vacation. These are plastic, and you put a water bottle in the top, you screw a water bottle in, and then you can control how much water is released through the little spout on the side. So again, perfect for somebody that likes to go on vacation or somebody that has some plants that are a little picky on how much water that they get. Root stimulators have been recommended on all of my surveys. And so for these particular recommendations, I went to kind of the expert on plant propagation, Dr. Jason Griffin at the John Pear Center, and asked what his favorite rooting powders and rooting stimulators were, because he does work with a lot of different products. And so these were two brands that he really liked. The first is the Hormex rooting powder. It comes in 1, 3, and 8 are the numbers. And he described it as the green is for easy to root plants, the ones that you don't really need to use a rooting hormone for, but you want to give them a little bit of a boost. And the red one is for those products that are very, very hard to get to root. And then orange is somewhere in the middle. Now, this particular one, actually both of these, he said you can easily find on Amazon. He also recommended for any of the rooting powders or root stimulators that you purchase, they need to be stored in a cool location to keep them at their best strength so that they're the most effective. This one on the right, the Dip and Grow liquid rooting concentrate, he said is kind of one of the old industry standards. He likes both products. The liquid is probably the one he said he has the most success with because the cutting absorbs the liquid better than it absorbs the dry powder. But the Dip and Grow is a concentrate, so you mix up based on how much you need and how much strength you need for every time that you use it. But again, both of those, he said, could easily be found on Amazon. And then it wouldn't be a garden recommendation if we didn't talk about some fertilizers that were recommended. The Super Thrive was recommended by several of our gardeners. They liked to use it in combination with other fertilizers to add some extra vitamins or nutrients to their plants. The middle line is one that the company was actually what was recommended. We the Wild is the company name. The gardener said that they absolutely love every product that they have purchased from them. They are based in America and they are an organic product, I believe, as well, from what their website has said. And then last but definitely not least, in the fertilizer section, the Fertilome products have been ones that have been recommended. This blooming and rooting Fertilome food was one that was recommended this year. Now, with any fertilizer, I would be remiss if I didn't say if you're using it outside in your garden or your flower beds, make sure you do a soil test on a regular basis to make sure that you are applying what those plants need, whether it's products similar to this or any type of fertilizer as we go along. I don't know many people who have had houseplants that at some point in time have not had issues with insects indoors, whether they are those little tiny fungus gnats or something slightly larger. So a couple products that have been recommended. We've actually used this Zevo line in our office when we had some fungus gnat issues. So these are a series of traps that lure the bugs into them, trap them and keep them in one location on a sticky trap. I also don't know if you can have too many sticky traps as an indoor gardener. They come in a variety of shapes, sizes. Yellow is the recommendation. I picked this particular picture because I just like this versus some the shape versus some of the others. And then last but not least, now there are a bunch of different insecticides that can be used and available. These were what were recommended on the list, but the systemic insect control was recommended for controlling aphids and different insects, but the gardener absolutely loved it to use it on their houseplants before they brought them in for the fall, and then they would use it again in the winter as based on how it was recommended. Now, for the gardener who has all of the tools and the products they need, and for the gardener that loves to learn and is always wanting to learn new techniques and new information, a book can be a wonderful gift option. Now, these book recommendations actually come from the International Master Gardener Conference. These books were recommended by the keynote speakers and the presenters during those particular topics as we go along. So this first one is actually from the 2023 International Master Gardener Conference and served as part of the base for our companion planting program, Garden Hour, a year or so ago. But it's called Plant Partners by Jessica Walliser, and it explores the different research and different projects that have gone on in terms of companion planting strategies, what ones work, what ones don't. And it gives you some recommendations on ways to minimize diseases, reduce pests, improve soil fertility, and support pollination by using plant partners in your garden. This one is available on Amazon and different locations. Most of these books are available from a variety of sources. If there was a specific author website, that is one that I tend to link if possible. The Accidental Seed Heroes by Adam Alexander was recommended by one of the keynote speakers at this year's International Master Gardener Conference. And this particular book explores the scientists, chefs, and home gardeners who are keeping some of those local varieties alive. Historically, we've had a lot of varieties that would be location specific that were developed to do really well in Butler County, Kansas. And we've lost some of those varieties as we've gone to more global seed companies. So this particular book explores that particular phenomena and trend. This one is a New Yorker's top 10 list, or bestsellers list for 2024, and was on the Times list for the top 10 nonfiction books of 2024. So this could be a great read for those cold wintertime days. The Geriatric Gardener by Dwayne Pancoast is a series of blogs, things that have been put together talking about adaptive gardening strategies for seniors. So this can be a wonderful book for the gardener that is starting to have mobility issues, to help give them ideas of ways that they can continue to garden longer and garden with less effort. So similar to looking at adaptive tools, this book may be a great option as well. This book was recommended by the one of the keynote speakers, Miss Ball. It's The Light Eaters by Zoe Schlanger. This one explores the science behind plant intelligence, how plants communicate, adapt, and change through their environment. It's really fascinating how, we used to think plants didn't talk, that plants didn't communicate, and science is really finding that that's not the case. So Zoe Schlanger works with scientists to study the research and to learn more about how plants communicate. Our next book was actually on the Kansas Forest Service Book Club last year, I believe, or early this spring. It's called The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wallenberg. So if you're a gardener who loves to read and wants to be involved in a book club that reads plants about books, maybe take a look at the Kansas Forest Service and check out their book club. They have a new book. I can't remember what it is, but they're working on a new book for this fall. But similar to the Light Bringers, this book looks at how trees feel and communicate. And after reading this book, a walk in the woods may not be the same. You may not look at the woods the same way again. Medicinal herbs is, and the use of plants in a medicinal purpose has been increasing in popularity. And this Handbook of Medicinal Herbs by James A. Duke, who is an ethnobotanist, is considered the foremost handbook on medicinal plants around the world. Unfortunately, Mr. Duke has passed away, but if you want a book on medicinal herbs, this one is probably one of the best. It is a worldwide book, though. So if you're wanting to focus strictly on medicinal herbs in the United States and Canada, a field guide to medicinal plants and herbs, the Peterson Field Guide, was also written by James Duke with Stephen Foster. And this focuses on over 500 medicinal plants and herbs, both native and non-native, for the eastern and central parts of the United States and Canada. Small green roofs are becoming increasingly popular. This particular book talks about how to design, install, care for, and use small green roofs, and then offers examples of those roofs both in the United States, the United Kingdom, and the New Zealand. And last but not least on our book list is The Incredible Journey of Plants by Stefano Mancuso. This book explores how plants migrate, how they spread seeds, and how plants are able to move from one location to the other. So this was another book that was recommended by one of our speakers at the International Gardener Conference. Now, surprisingly, there haven't been a lot of plants that have been recommended throughout the years on my garden survey, but I wanted to talk about the few that have been recommended. Bulbs has been probably the most popular plant that's been recommended, both spring, summer, and fall flowering, or amaryllis bulbs have been a great gift option. It's almost too late to plant some of our spring flowering bulbs, but there's definitely options that you can get out there still that we could use for spring or summer flowering. Some of the perennials that have been recommended, roses are one of the ones that are recommended a lot, along with daylilies and native perennials. So we used a purple coneflower picture. Houseplants can be a great gift for a gardener. Now, the houseplant you get will depend on the growing conditions that particular gardener has. But some of the ones that have been recommended are a monstera species. So this is the Monstera deliciosa. Peace lilies have been recommended on several of our lists, as have varieties of Hoyas, different types of Hoyas. And then some miscellaneous plants. One of the recommendations was this baby sunrose, or ice plant as we call it. The gardener really loved it because it was easy to propagate. They could overwinter it and then they could plant it out again in the spring in different locations. It comes in a variety of different colors. Begonias have also been on our recommended plant list, a begonia of some kind. And then seeds. Seeds have been commonly recommended. One gardener recommended the Baker Creek Seed Company. Other ones have recommended general heirloom seeds, just seeds that fit what your gardener is interested in growing. Now, a few miscellaneous ideas to wrap up this presentation. I don't know about you, but the snowfall picture seemed appropriate for our Monday snow. Some of the recommendations have been for gift cards. And for some, that may seem like it's a little bit of a cop-out, just buying a gift card for a gardener. But in many instances, that may be one of the best gifts that you could give them, because it lets them purchase the product or the plants that they want when they want or need them. Because we couldn't necessarily purchase an annual if they wanted to plant them in the spring for Christmas, but giving them a gift card would let them purchase that at a later date. So consider giving a gift card for some of those really hard to purchase people. Conference registrations. I don't know many gardeners that are not always learning or wanting to learn about different plants, projects, or growing practices. So maybe a conference registration. For this year, the Great Plains Growers Conference will be happening in the spring in St. Louis or St. Joseph, Missouri. So if you have a gardener that really likes to vegetable garden or is maybe looking at starting a market type garden, the Great Plains Growers Conference can be a great option for them. Now, the International Master Gardener Conference is not happening until 2027, but it could still be a great gift for a future Christmas or for a future birthday. So think about that particular option. It is in Florida. I jokingly said that if I went to that one, I'd need an extra suitcase to bring back the plants that I would probably purchase while I was there. So keep that in mind. And then last but not least on this group are coupons. My grandma loved it when I would give her coupons to come over and repot or clean up her house plants and her geraniums, or when I'd come over and help weed her flower beds or prune different things. Now, those were things that I would do anyway, but she took great satisfaction on pulling the coupon out and handing it to me to call in that favor at that particular day. So maybe a coupon to help pull weeds or plant flowers, especially if it's something that your gardener knows that you don't usually like to do. The fact that you're making the effort and wanting to put time into their passion and hobby means a lot more than maybe a gift that could have been purchased. Seed saving. One of the recommendations this year was some personalized seed packets for the gardener who likes to save seeds and then give them out to other people. So it's hard to see, but this particular seed packet says from the garden of Adelaide June is the gardener's name. So for somebody who likes to save seeds, that can be a pretty simple one. There's some really cool ones out there. I know there's a lot of people who use seed packets for weddings or other events. So you can get some pretty cool seed packets that are customized for your gardener. And then a seed saving kit. This can be perfect for the gardener that saves seeds already, or for the gardener that wants to start saving seeds to give them some of the things that they need to get it started. I don't have a specific link for these because there's so many different options available. I really suggest you take a look and figure out what one would fit your gardener the best. And last but not least, the gift of time. So take them, again, the coupons, or take them to visit a botanical garden during the spring and the summer. Take them to a garden center and let them pick out the gift that they really want to buy. Or a plug for the extension office. Keep an eye out for your educational events, different programs and things that are going on in your area. That you can take your gardener to, especially if they don't necessarily pay attention to some of those things. You could surprise them because there's always gardening or other educational events. We have a garden show in the spring, or different counties have gardening programs every single year. So consider a day trip, both in Kansas or out of state. So as we think about giving gifts this year, I really recommend that you take some time and maybe think outside of the box of what a traditional gift might be for the gardener in your life. I highly recommend that you do some reading and do some research looking into these different products, so that you can find the one that is perfect. Use this as a guide or suggestion and go from there. If you want to read our latest gifts for gardeners, you can check out my Grapevine newsletter at Butler County's website. And there's some products there that didn't make it into this particular presentation. With that, I know we have a few minutes left for questions. I will try to answer them. Unfortunately, I can't tell you exactly what gift to give the gardener in your life, but we'll try and answer questions.
All right, thank you for that, Calla. That was wonderful. Yeah, lots of various questions in here about the different types of products. One recommendation that's in here right now is actually for the Praying Hands Hosta. They say it's a lovely sympathy gift that you can give to people.
Okay.
So that's something to consider. Another question that came through here was about recommendations for people that have knee issues when it comes to garden stools. Do you have thoughts there? What I recommended to them was potentially those rolling seated garden carts as an alternative. Are there other things that you're aware of?
So for seating, the rolling carts are probably my best recommendation. If they can still kneel on the ground. There are some chaps that are available that have the kneeling pads that you can slide into the knees. So I know there's some people who have had knee replacements that can't stand to have the knee pads strapped to their knees. But those chaps are an option. But yeah, the rolling garden cart is probably one of the best if you don't want to kneel on the ground.
Yep. We also had a question here about heated bird baths. What's your stance on those? Are those recommended or?
I there I use them. I do recommend the ones that have the heater built in that has a thermostat. So if they do boil dry, they shut themselves off automatically. I know historically there's been some issues with them, with the ones that sit in the bird baths. If they got too dry, they might light leaves that were left on fire. Um, but I do like to use my heated bird bath. I got one for Christmas a couple years ago that has the heater built in, so I don't have to worry about that.
Add to that just watching product reviews and watching for
Yes.
corrosion preventative measures can always help you out.
Yes.
All right, I think I'm gonna have to cut you guys off there, but we typically have more questions than we have time for, but we'll be sure to link several articles related to this session on our website. We hope these resources will help you answer your questions, but if you need additional information, please contact your local K-State Extension office. Once again, thanks for joining our K-State Garden Hour series hosted by K-State Research and Extension. We're so glad you could be here today to learn about gifts for gardeners. You can visit the K-State Garden Hour website to view our recorded Garden Hour archive or to make a tax-deductible donation to support the continuation of this webinar series. This session was recorded and will be posted on the website by tomorrow afternoon. After this webinar ends today, you will receive a prompt to take an evaluation survey. Please fill this out. We would greatly appreciate your feedback. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at gardenhour@ksu.edu. The Garden Hour will be continuing in 2026, so keep an eye out on our website for details on our upcoming presentations. Thank you again, and we hope you continue to tune in each month. Have a great week.